When you're pissed off, frustrated, sad, depressed, overwhelmed, you can't fight your way out of a paper bag, right? Because in that state, you're not resourceful.
And it goes from being a miserable experience or a tough experience or a hard experience to one that you can do anything that you want with.
I know it's hard. I know it gets difficult. And I can share personally, there's been times in my life it was so extraordinarily difficult.
Well, first of all, nobody's stuck. I mean, when you give yourself that metaphor, metaphors take over our minds. You know, somebody saying, well, oh my God, I'm freaking out, I'm at the end of my rope, I'm at the end of my rope. So I let go of it and come over here. And they look at me like, you know, or, you know, I'm between a rock and a hard place. Show me where. When you make up these metaphors, they literally take you over. They hypnotize you. So for me, nobody's stuck. I sometimes tease people, I say, if you've ever been to Vegas, you know where that big Hoover Dam is. When they're building that thing, 2 people fell in. They're still there. They're stuck. If you're not in Hoover Dam, you're not stuck. You know, I'd be playful with people. But if you want to shift your state, which is really what we're talking about, when you're stuck, what usually means you feel overwhelmed, you're stressed, you're depressed, you're whatever. You have to understand that the fastest way to change your state is not with your mind, it's with your body. And if you make a radical change in the way you move, the way you breathe, the way you walk, your shoulders, like if I said to you, there's a depressed person behind curtain number 1 there, I'll give you $100 grand if you can describe to your favorite charity, if you'll describe for me what they look like without even seeing them behind the curtain. What would you say? What do they look like?
Hands hanging down low.
Okay. Where's their shoulders?
Slumped over.
Yeah, where's their head?
Down.
Down. Talking loud or quiet?
Quiet.
Fast or slow?
Slow.
How do you know?
I've been there.
Yes, and we've all been there. But what happens is if you take that same person and you change the shoulder position, you change the breathing, you change the tempo they move, you literally change their biochemistry. And I've done this with the best athletes in the world, presidents of countries, presidents of companies, and then I've done what, 38 years now, and then about 2 or maybe 3 years ago, a woman at Harvard did this study called power positions. And what she proved is what I've been showing people all over, but she did scientifically. She showed by standing like Wonder Woman or Superman, in 2 minutes of standing that way, nothing else, your testosterone increase in your body is 20%. Cortisol will drop 18%, which is the stress hormone, and you're 33% more likely to take a risky decision, which entrepreneurs and business people got to do all the time. So I don't just have somebody stand solid. I show them how to move, breathe, shift, and it's 10 times more dynamic. When you do that, you'll get out of the funk. You can get out of the funk in 2 minutes. But if you sit here and try and think yourself out of it, people get circular thoughts. I mean, have you experienced it yourself? Almost everybody has.
Sure. I mean, you get to a point where you feel like, you know, thinking or feeling something different about it is not going to change. Yeah. You feel like it's the circumstances or the decisions that you've made. You sort of made your bed, now you have to lie in it, right?
And that philosophy is a really important thing you brought up. The only thing that screws you up is limiting beliefs that you don't investigate, that you just accept, right? This idea, I've made my bed and I'm going to leave it. Well, how old is that stupid thought? It's not true. It's somebody said to you to say, you've got to pay the consequence for this. The consequence is for you to change it. That's the consequence you should go for. Sitting and just accepting the consequence is the stupidest thing you could possibly do. But our culture has hypnotized us. Look before you leap. You're also taught he who hesitates is lost. Now, what the hell are you going to do in between the two? So what I look to do with people is have them uncover what's really stopping them. And it's 2 things. It's the state you're in, the mental and emotional state. When you're pissed off, frustrated, sad, depressed, overwhelmed, you can't fight your way out of a paper bag, right? Because in that state, you're not resourceful. If you are feeling playful or creative or passionate or driven or hungry or grateful, you get a whole different set of insights and thoughts. So it's learning to prime yourself, train yourself, snap yourself out of it physically that makes the difference. But then it's also finding what's holding you there. And what's holding you there is usually a blueprint, a set of beliefs, a set of rules. And you got to investigate them, and I teach people serious techniques on how to blow out the stuff that, frankly, is belief system bullshit. Pretty much the same thing in most cases. If it's a limiting belief system, it's usually bullshit. And when you see the truth, it instantly changes the game for you. When you witness it, when you experience what's real.
All you have to do is change the way you think. And it goes from being a miserable experience or a tough experience or a hard experience to one that you can do anything that you want with. And when my mother got our family all back together again when I was nine, almost 10 years old. And I can remember her telling me what it was like when I was just a baby, when I was just like an infant, that I was the one child that could make everybody else laugh at times when everybody else would. She said we were waiting for a bus one time when we were just real babies before I went into the orphanage, and she said a car came by, and it was in Detroit, and there was all this slush, and we all went flying down. Everybody had dirt on them and dirty snow, and we were laying in the ground, and everybody was crying. And she said, you were and upset and mad because our clothes were wet and so on. And she said, you just stood up and said, this is great, isn't this wonderful? Look, we don't have to do this, and we don't, just turning it into something positive. It's like, so the ability to be able to do that was something. I can't remember a time in my life when I didn't know that if I really went to work on how I thought, that things just didn't have to be bad. I was the richest kid in the orphanage. I've talked about that many times in my lectures. That a snowstorm was a time we had two snow shovels at the home, and one of them had the edges all curled up from hitting the curbs, and you couldn't make any money with that one. So the other one, when it would snow, I would go downstairs and I would take the good snow shovel and I would put it under my bed, and I'd sleep with it right with me in the bed so that nobody else would get it. And I would get up before everybody else got up, and I would go out and I would just shovel everybody else's snow, shovel their walk. And then later on, I'd just go knock on the door and just tell them that I shoveled their walk, and some would say thank you, and some would give me a dime, which doesn't sound like much, but that's about $3,000 in today's money. And when I found out that soda pop bottles, for example, were worth 2 cents each, that if you took them back, you could get 2 cents back, that was just like one of the great awarenesses and awakenings of my life, because I would follow people around who were drinking a Coca-Cola and say, you almost done with that? They said, well, no, I'm not. Well, just whenever you're ready, I just follow them, and I'd walk until, and we had a coal bin where we lived, because it was coal furnaces, and we filled that coal bin with soda pop bottles, and I would take it back. It was just always easy to change, and all the other kids would be not having any money and complaining about not being able to have abundance or be able to have some level of being able to buy themselves just a little donut or a Pepsi Cola or something. They couldn't figure it out, and it always seemed so easy to me that all you had to do was just look around and see the opportunities in anything, and it had nothing to do with whether there are opportunities there. There always are opportunities. I'm 67 years old. I have never, ever been unemployed, or even can't even deal with the concept of unemployment. It isn't that I've had no job. I've always had more jobs than and it isn't because I've been through all good economic times. There've been some pretty sour economic times over the last 50 years or so. I just have never known how to think any other way than if you change the way you think about things, you can create whatever it is you want for yourself in your life.
I was asked, Brendan, how do you deal with difficult times? Times of life when it's just challenging, maybe you're frustrated at work, or it's difficult in a relationship you have, or you get sick, or you get hurt, or somebody you care for is sick or hurt, or they die, and you find yourself at a period of life when it's just difficult. The days have felt a little dark, a little heavy, a little frustrating. You have a sense that things aren't going well. What do you do during that time? That is not an easy question, and I respect the person who wrote that into us, because I don't know where you're at, but I've certainly been there in my life. I've lost loved ones. I've been through dramatic car accidents in my own life. I've had a brain injury. I've had great friends who've been majorly sick or ill or debilitated in some way or another, and I get it. It's tough, and I deal with literally millions of people every single week, and I can tell you, in all the comments I hear, a lot of people are struggling. And it's a reality, it's difficult. So I'm not here to gloss this over or hype you up. I just like to give some things that I do when I get in that situation, and I hope it serves you or serves your family member, your friend, your loved one, whoever you share this message with after you watch it. I think the first thing that we can do, and it sounds so simple and so tactical, it seems like a throwaway, but it's this. When times are difficult, try to find every single day 3 things that you can do. Just set 3 goals for the day. I know that sounds so simple, but as a blanket strategy, it works. If you're down and out and you're depressed, just having 3 things to do during the day giving yourself 3 simple things to move yourself through will help you. It will feel like it will bring a little progress or a little accomplishment or a little connection with yourself into the day. It could be as simple as, like if you're really down out, if you're really struggling with difficult times, sometimes that goal can be get up, take a shower, you know? It can be, hey, today I'm gonna walk down to the coffee shop with a good positive book and I'm just gonna sit down and just read for an hour drinking a coffee. You know, it can be as simple as call somebody, call a friend or a family member. It can be so simple, but having 3 of them helps you progress throughout the day. It doesn't have to be complex, but it keeps you moving through the difficult times, remembering the old adage that this too shall pass. But if you're just sitting around waiting in your own darkness, in your own just sadness or depression or frustration, waiting for it to pass and not having any, what we call in psychology, personal agency in your life, you're not taking any action to move that ball forward, then it can get really frustrating. So just set 3 small goals for yourself during the dark times every day. Just knock them off, just 3 little goals. No matter what they are, just move towards them, get those done, and you'll start to feel a little bit better over a period of time. I would say the next thing to do is just keep perspective. And that's the hardest thing to tell somebody when they're going through a hard time because, you know, it's so easy to say, well, you don't understand me, or this is so hard, or this is the worst time in my life. And some of that might feel true. And it might be true. It might be one of the most difficult, trying times of your life. And all we can say is keep perspective. We can't say keep perspective other than just say, you know, there have been good times. Remember them. Don't cut loose of those good times in your memories just because now your focus is on the dark times. Remember those times that were better. Remember those times in which you did connect with others, that you did create, that you did take action. And remember also your strength. Because it's so easy when the times are dark to just focus on all the things that you're doing to screw it up, or all the things that people are doing to mess with your life, and you forget the incredible power that you have. I mean, it is an amazing miracle. If you're looking for the miracle, you already got it. That miracle that you've been given the power of choice and will to direct your own attention each day, to direct your own attitude each day, to direct your own actions each day, to direct your own affections and emotions out into the world, that you control those things, that you can move those things, that you can shape those things. That's the miracle. You are the miracle. You've been waiting for something to show up and change, and I just say, you've already been given the gift. Now you have to activate it. So when it's difficult, keep perspective on the fact that there have been good times. There will be more good times. That even if you are struggling personally, you still have that great freedom that has been given to us, and that choice, that gift of free will to start directing yourself. So start remembering your strengths and start directing yourself again. Because look, in the dark times, it's the easiest time to curl up in the ball. And sometimes that's okay. Hey, if you need to have a bad day and sit on the couch and watch a bunch of movies with some tissues and just go through a bad day and a few bags of potato chips, you know, a lot of people have to deal with that situation. It's okay. But if that happens day after day after day after day after day, that's the time to take control of your life back or ask for some help. You know, part of perspective isn't just understanding our life has been better, understanding that we have strength and choice and will. It's understanding that we aren't the only thing. That perspective reminds us there's other people out in the world who we might be able to connect with who could help us. To raise our hand and connect with a friend, or to take somebody out for lunch, or to call a therapist, or to get some support from other people, other family, other friends. It's important. That's part of perspective as well. I would say, you know, what else comes to mind when there's a difficult time is to ask, what should I be learning here? Because sometimes when it's really difficult in life, we don't feel competent. We don't feel capable. We feel like, you know, we don't have any personal power. We don't have any knowledge of how to proceed through there. So I tell people, when you're in a difficult time, create like a learning map. You know, right? Like, okay, based on everything that's going on right now, what are 3 things I need to start learning right now? You know, what can I learn from this situation? That's always powerful, right? That's one powerful way to learn. Well, what can I learn from you? What's the universe sending a message to me right now? What can I learn from this situation, from my behavior or my beliefs, from my interactions with other people? But also going to that next level and saying, okay, at this point, what should I start learning in my life? And I know it sounds so weird, you know, I'm not saying, hey, you know, you're really depressed, it's time to start learning French. But you know what? It might help you, because in the process of learning something, our brain starts activating in different ways that also end up activating other parts of our brain's capabilities to grow, to cope, to deal. A great time to start learning again is the times when you feel just beaten up and kicked by the side of the road. It's time to stand up and say, okay, what would I need to learn now to advance my life to the next stage? Because look, no matter where you're at, if you're in a difficult place in life right now, realize you've been in the last stage, and now there's gonna be a new stage. So what would you have to learn or master in this new stage to feel better about yourself or about life, or get ahead a little bit more? Don't forget that. What else comes to my mind? You know, just the desire to have intention, to be your best self despite the difficulties. I know it's hard. I know it gets difficult. And I can share personally, there's been times in my life it was so extraordinarily difficult. If you ever read my book, The Charge, you read about my brain injury. There was a time in my life it was really difficult. I couldn't control my emotions. I couldn't control my reactions to other people. I was damaged enough from a concussive syndrome that I got after an accident. I was kind of out of control. And it was so difficult that all I could do is just set the intention every single day, and every single time I saw somebody's eyes. I was in a relationship, I could see somebody, you know, if someone walked in, I connected with them. I triggered this thought in my mind. I said, just whatever you do, interact with this situation as your highest self. How would my best self interact with this situation? I mean, if you're thinking about it, it's like your family's going through turmoil, there's challenge in your life. Show up and be the person that says, how could I deal with this as my best self? How would my best self view this and work through this and support the people around me? How could, even though I'm going through difficulty, but other people are too, how could I be a role model? How could I challenge myself in that way, to take personal power and responsibility back onto our shoulders? Because sometimes in difficult times, that's when we start wearing our victim hat and we just curl up on the ball and we forget our extraordinary power to say, you know, I can do something about this. I might not know what, but I'm just gonna, whatever does keep coming my way right now, because it feels like I'm in a fight, I'm gonna react in a positive way. I'm gonna react from my highest self. And then I think the last thing, this is the most important, and you probably thought of this right when I mentioned the topic of the video, and that's this. When times are difficult, do not forget gratitude. That part of keeping perspective, part of living from our highest self, part of the greatest lessons of life, part of the greatest goals that we could ever set in our life are to become more grateful people, to become more appreciative of what we do have, to become more aware of the blessings that are all around from God, from the universe, from the cosmos, by luck, whatever you attribute blessing to. You know, it's that time to say, gosh, what could I be grateful for? What is going on in my life right now that I could pay attention to? Or what has happened? Or what is opening for me that I could give some awareness and attention to that would make me understand that I am lucky, even amidst all of this. You know, I do have some things going for me. I have had some breaks. I have had some opportunities, and I will have those again. To be grateful for your health, to be grateful for what physical powers you do have, for what visual powers you have to have a vision for your life. This is the time when it's most difficult to get grateful for the blessings and the choices you do have, for who you are and who you can become, for the people who are around you and who do support you. And if you can keep these things in mind as you're going through these difficult times, you can start feeling the energy come back up. You can start feeling engagement with life again. You can start feeling enthusiasm again for tomorrow. You can start feeling again once more what we call the charged life.